So we are on chapter 15, The Perfect Pitch, in the section under the Law of Influence. So in this chapter, the authors pretty much say you don't give a pitch when you meet someone. You just don't. You really just try to make friends. You just really try to get to know people and just be there, be present. And it's really interesting because, no one wants to be pitched, right? It's especially when you first meet them. And Bob and Berg say, you have to find ways to make it feel comfortable or natural. You're not even going to pitch, not at all. In the first meeting, in the first encounter, you're not going to do it. You're just really just going to create value and just get to know someone or some people. And it felt really, after I read that, it felt really calming because I can eventually go out there and be myself if I'm in a situation where I need to meet people. I don't have to force it. And yeah, and I just want to read a little bit I just want to read a quote from this chapter. It says here on page 90, "The key is to go in not with the goal of hitting on people, but with a goal of meeting and making a few new friends. And you don't even have to mention your MacGuffin at all. Your MacGuffin is pretty much, your product or service. Even if you're excited about it, you don't pitch it. Even if you think that the other person can benefit from your product or service and how excited you are about it, it's not a good idea to even mention it at all in the first time you meet someone, especially. Even the first few times you meet them, or because when you make this encounter or when you meet someone at an event, it's really about the other person, right? It's not about you, the salesperson. It's about the other person that you met. And so their one word for making a perfect pitch is don't. So I thought that was a little bit refreshing. And the secret is to have no pitch, nothing. So yeah, they also gave an example in this chapter about this. So I'll just say it in my own words. So Bob wanted this client, he calls him the Big Kahuna, but couldn't get him to, have a meeting or an appointment or whatever. And it took some time, And so he met a guy somewhere and ended up, we'll call him, I think his name is Greg. Okay, his name is Greg. So Bob met Greg. And then, so Bob met Greg, right? They became like acquaintances, buddies. So Bob helped Greg a few times with jobs and also helped him to get his daughter to meet someone that can help her with her career because she just graduated college, right? So Bob helped Greg in that way. And so the years went on, right? And Bob needed help. And then Greg has a client, the Big Kahuna, which Bob knew that Greg had. But by not mentioning it and not acting desperate or asking for this favor or whatnot, Bob just became a good resource for Greg over time. And eventually, Greg referred the Big Kahuna to Bob, right? I'm just making it really simple and easy, the example. So, and I think that's a good lesson, a good thing to keep in mind that, we just try to help people, give value. How can we make things better for them? If you're basically using your own network to help other people that you know. So yeah, and he didn't use a pitch at all, and obviously the Big Kahuna benefited from Bob's, service or business. So, but yeah, I think that's a good lesson for especially maybe newer business owners or newer entrepreneurs, yeah. So that's that for the perfect pitch. Don't pitch. I'll see you in the next one. So in this chapter 16, great questions. So they say here, traditional sales focuses on the presentation, but the Go-Giver's approach focuses on connection. And so learning to ask what questions to ask is very helpful. So I'm just going to read a few questions that they have listed here as far as asking, which provokes more appreciation and joyfulness or yeah. The first question that comes in that says here is, how do you get started in the fill in the blank business? So if someone is in, the dry cleaning business, so how did you get started in the dry cleaning business? It's not, anything unique, but people will open up to that question, right? They'll tell you their life story maybe. a story about their life. Another question would be, what did you enjoy most about what you do? Yeah, so instead of asking the opposite, like what do you hate about your job, so what do you enjoy most about what you do? And so again, by asking these questions, you're creating value, we're creating value, because I said this like a moment ago, it evokes pleasure, appreciation, and pride in the other person, and this will help them remember you because you've asked these questions. And here are more, they say, feel good questions. What do you see as most unique or special about your company or your business? What advice would you give someone just starting out in the fill in the blank business? What's the strangest or funniest thing you've seen happen in your business? What significant changes have you seen in your profession in, say, the past 10 years? What do you see as the coming trends in the fill in the blank business? So these are just quite a few examples on page 96 and 97 of the Go Give or Sell More book. I think asking, not just asking questions, but asking the right questions, or asking, in this case, great questions, but I think they're the right questions, right? The right questions to have them open up and evoke a feeling. So that's the main thing here. We want them to evoke a happy feeling, a pleasurable feeling. So I think that's pretty much it for great questions. So in this example, Bob asked the CEO of a business, his contact, right, or his acquaintance. He said, how can I know if someone I'm speaking with would be a good connection for Beth as she starts her career? So Bob is asking the CEO about his daughter. In the example that they give, it seems as though the CEO was intrigued and interested, and so he answered Bob. And over time, Bob got business from the CEO over and over, quite a few times after. So, I mean, it does matter, like, how we treat people, right? You can't just ask for something when you meet them, because that's just, like, dirty. It feels dirty. And so in this case, when you ask great questions, they don't need to know what product or service you're offering, your MacGuffin. Don't even mention it. Don't even think about it. Make it about the other person. What can you think of that's a great question to ask this person in order to help them and in order to give great value? In this case, the CEO had a daughter that just finished college, because I'm sure the CEO talked about the daughter, right? So if you're a good listener, you're going to pick up on these things. It could be that, for that example, for instance, or like if someone's high school kid wants, a ride along at a police car, right? And an officer because maybe you did his insurance, and someone's kid that wants to be interested in the law enforcement. You're just kind of using your own network to help other people. In this case, asking great questions, asking what questions to ask is really important. In the previous chapters, we are our own human internet, right? So I'll see you in the next video.